All right, I'm here with Matthew Currie Holmes, the writer and director for Buckout Road, one of the standouts at the Buffalo Film Festival this year. I really loved the movie.
Thanks, man.
And this was your first time directing a feature.
Yeah, directorial debut, yeah.
Oh, it's a fantastic movie. So I know you already answered a couple questions during the Q&A. I want to get a few things on the video here. So how did how did this movie come about?
This movie, my producers had already had a script, had some cast, had a start date, but they felt that the script wasn't where it needed to be, so I got a call from our casting director and co-producer, Paul, who recommended me for a rewrite, and then as I started rewriting the script, they really dug what I was doing and asked if I wanted to direct it, so I said yes.
All right. Well, I mean, I could tell it. I spoke a little bit with your co-producer there, and he mentioned how that you did a lot with the script from where it started out with.
It was a page one.
Yeah.
It was a rewrite from the beginning. Yeah.
I could tell there was a lot of passion in it. I mean, what made you want to put it towards as you said during the Q&A? Ended up being there's a lot of theological stuff going on in there. What made you want to incorporate that into the plot?
I'm a huge fan of horror films, acting in them, writing them. I've written a bunch. I've been watching them since I was old enough to talk, and I wanted to do something that I don't want to say that hasn't been done before, but it hasn't been done in a while, and I feel like the theological debate, because Buckout Road is home to all these urban legends, I wanted to make the urban legends themselves the antagonist, and I felt what is the ultimate bad guy to an antagonist, to supernatural, would be an atheist. So I'm like, oh, that's a whole debate, so let's see how that goes. So I wanted to incorporate all these things with religion, because and the times that we're living in are pretty interesting times.
Yeah,
put
it lightly.
So let's have that debate. So
and yeah, I mean that's really cool. I mean, you're right. Not a lot of horror movies actually do go into that. To the extent you did there. I think it really worked out really well for this movie.
Man. Thank you.
Now, based on a couple of things you said during the Q&A, I do want to ask: do you actually believe in the paranormal, the supernatural? Sounds like you're at least a fan of it.
Dude, listen, I'm agnostic.
Okay.
So I believe that that once science proves it empirically, it's going to happen. So if God comes down and and it's like undisputed that it happens, I'm in.
Well, I'm agnostic as well.
I believe.
I meant more along the lines of things like ghosts, things like that.
I say no. But I think I say no just to protect myself from bad dreams and stuff. It's like I say no, but
once you open that door, it's hard to close it again.
Well, what I love is, it's to me it doesn't matter what I believe or whether it's real or not. It's completely irrelevant. It's the fact that it's an unknown entity,
right?
And that is what I find so captivating, is that there's something so unknown that people need to find the answers, and it's always the quest is more interesting than whether it's definitively proved, or whether or not I even believe it is kind of irrelevant. It's just, here's a question, let's find the answers. That's the hero's journey for me. And so when it comes to things like the supernatural, I find that really interesting, because you can open up a door and you don't know where it's going to lead.
I agree completely. As I mentioned to you, one of the other many hats I wear is a paranormal investigator. So I mean, I've experienced things, and that's why I believe in that type of thing. But I think, and I tell people flat out, in this day and age with technology the way it is, I don't think anyone, any wise person should look at any sort of video or picture or anything and take that as evidence. I think, in order to actually believe in that type of thing, you do have to experience it.
Yeah, and I think that the experience comes through the quest. Right. So once you're willing to open that door and go down that door, then, hey man, good luck.
Down the rabbit hole. So
or down Buckout Road.
So back to the movie business. So what is next?
Well, the same producers that did Buckout Road have optioned a screenplay that my friend Tracy Morse and I wrote called Self-Storage. About the world's oldest vampires who's stuck in a self-storage unit. There are, 6 people are trapped, and they have to, basically go through this labyrinthine self-storage facility in order to, before the sun goes down, and we're shooting that possibly this summer. So,
now, is that straight horror, or is that like horror comedy? I could see it going either way.
You know, I don't like to say horror comedy, but because that's kind of setting myself, like if it's not funny
Right.
or scary, you just. But it's definitely more along the lines of Lost Boys meets Fanboys. Like it's very Shaun of the Dead.
All right, perfect.
You know, lots of gore, lots of practical effects. Very different. This Buckout Road is I don't really consider a horror film. I consider it more like a supernatural thriller. It's a little more methodical in its pacing. It's kind of it's a movie that that we don't really see anymore, like an old midnight movie from the 80s and 90s. Self-Storage is more of just a straight ahead wham bam, lots of action, violence, and hopefully super cool scares.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, it'll be good.
So yeah, I love the movie. I want to
man.
thank you for you taking the time for the interview here.
Of course.
Before I let you go, is there anything else you want to tell the viewers?
Yeah, support indie film. Thank you so much for giving a shit what I have to say. And hopefully Buckout Road will be distributed soon, and you'll be able to see it for yourselves.
Fantastic.